Hello there, hello everybody. No Aloha here. This is going to be a short 10-minute, maybe 15-minute video, just showing setup for Forbidding Desert and going through maybe the first turn, just to give you an idea of what happens when you flip cards over. There's nothing very complicated about this custom game whatsoever, but this is not a fan-made scenario in the strictest sense. This is a variant. I don't think this is Arkham Horror the card game anymore. This is some kind of evil hybrid of the card game and the Gamewright game, Forbidden Desert. It feels a bit more board gamey than the card game, put it that way. What do we do? First thing, I think the most important part of setup, for me maybe you don't do this. When I do setup with the instructions, I kind of just draw my cards outside of that. Don't do that for Forbidding Desert. The drawing of cards, your starting hand, is referenced within the setup instructions. So, first thing we will do is read the flavor text. Yes, that is the first thing you should do. That is definitely the first thing. So, after you have finished reading flavor text, you are going to be given an option. Are you going to rush or are you going to prepare? Very basic, general theme here is we have gone to the desert, there is a gate at the desert, we have to close the gate. We make base camp, and then the lead investigator decides, do we rush straight out, or do we take an hour or so, pack our bags carefully with the important stuff at the top, that kind of thing. We are going to play this short instructional turn or two with Roland and Wendy. Wendy's lead investigator for this. She's going to decide to rush. She is not going to prepare, she is going to barrel out as fast as she can, try to find this gate and stop all the horribleness from spewing out of it. So, with that in mind, we've made our decision based on the introductory flavor text, we can move into setup. First thing we need to do is gather the kit and water skin assets that are, conveniently, just here. 12 cards in total, not 2 pairs of 6, 6 pairs of 2, very obvious which ones are paired with which, they have the same name and the same colours. One of the pairs, one of the cards in each pair will be a kit card, one of them will be water skin. Water skin represents your water supply, and you can be defeated in this game if you run out of water. Your other card is a general special rule that makes your role within the expedition unique. So you have to pick some roles for your investigators. You do that before drawing a starting hand. I think we will just go red with red and blue with blue for the sake of fashion, if nothing else. Wendy is our archaeologist. Roland is just the water carrier. That is fine. We will then go into drawing our starting hand. You may have caught a little peek here. I have drawn a starting hand already, but that is not what you're supposed to do. I'm doing that just for time-saving purposes. The reason being, if we had chosen to prepare, when we draw our starting hand, we would do so with a starting hand size of 6, and we get to mulligan twice. And that is a way of reflecting that extra preparation time. We did not choose to prepare, we chose to rush, so we can move on. So yeah, we have drawn our starting hands here. Blah, blah, blah. Next thing we do is set up our desert. As you can see in this diagram, we are looking at a 5x5 grid of location cards with a gap in the middle. The gap in the middle is the storm. Anybody who has played Forbidden Desert will be perfectly familiar with this. So, we just have our deck of 24 location cards, unrevealed side up, obviously, and we're going to deal them out in a big old square with a hole in the middle. The game refers to the storm as the Eye, just for, give it that much more of an ominous personality. And it does sometimes have a personality. There will be times where the storm will, like some cartoon villain in a car, just drive over you, reversing and accelerating. It can feel like it is targeting you for sure. We have our desert of 5x5 cards. You'll note that some of them do have different backs. The majority look like this, but then we have 3 of these slightly more lush, fertile looking cards. That is intentional. And then we have this card, which is going to be the starting location. So we can flip this over and pop our investigators over here. We won't take a look at it just yet. We have set up our desert, we have placed our investigators at the starting location, all good and dandy. We then need to set up a few decks. The unique deck, we have what's called a remnants deck, and we have these story assets, 12 in total. Some of them are more common than others. One of them has 3, one of them has a single, blah blah blah. We're going to take all 12 of these remnant traded story assets and just make a deck out of them. Give it a shuffle and place it somewhere on your table. You are going to need to separate out, there are 24 encounter cards here. This is going to be our final encounter deck. There are 12 other encounter cards over here. This is a secondary encounter set, and you just want to put these to one side for the time being. You will note that they have a different symbol in the center of the card, and they are, to make it especially easy, they're all enemies. So just if you find any enemy encounter cards, they're going to go in their own deck. And finally, these are our objective assets, I guess. This is what we're looking for in the desert. When we combine these together, we are going to have a means of closing the gate and everybody can go home happy. But these will pop up through card instructions. Just put them to one side, you don't need to worry about them just yet. The rolls that are not used, scrunch them up into a tiny little ball and then throw them in the bin. That's the advised thing to do. After we have done that, there is one final part of setup, and that is putting some sand in the desert. Not necessarily the sand in the desert, but the sand which this storm is essentially to blame for. We want to, let's take a look at the card in question. It is this one. As you can see there is kind of a diamond shaped made in the center of the desert. 8 doom tokens in total. And you're going to place them as instructed in the instruction booklet. So we start the game at 8 doom already. However, if we carry on reading, which is always a good idea, if during the introductory flavor text you chose to rush, which we did, place 2 per investigator fewer doom tokens on the desert. So because we have 2 investigators, we can actually avoid 4 of these doom tokens. I think, I don't want to spend any time strategizing, we'll leave this one on here, but we'll take this nearby one away, we'll take this one away, we'll take this one, we'll leave that one, and we'll take that one. So we only have 4 doom tokens left on the desert, and that is the benefit of rushing. Okay, that is by and large the game all set up. Sorry, I knocked the microphone. However, there are several rules that are different to base Arkham Horror the card game. Some of them are very different, some of them are similar-ish, that they can cause problems just because they are very nearly similar, but they are actually different. I chose not to put all of the special rules just in the rulebook. I felt like that was hiding it, and I felt also that I should lean into the rule set, the design space rather, of the card game itself. So with that in mind, a lot of the special rules are present on the agenda and act card. I don't necessarily want players to constantly be leaning over the table, checking out these during the first game or two as they're just learning the extra actions. So all of the extra actions are kind of put for the players on this player aid. So everybody will have one copy of these, and it just functions as a reminder of special actions you can take that are listed on the act and agenda, and some special actions that are common across, for example, the water carrier supplies, the supply cards and whatnot. Take a look at this. This should help get your game off to a running start. Let's just run through the agenda, because this is going to highlight pretty much how this... It's going to highlight why this isn't Arkham Horror the card game anymore. This is some hybrid mishmash monster between Arkham Horror the card game and Forbidden Desert. First thing, during upkeep, players are not going to draw a card, and they are not going to gain a resource. That is just the standard part of the upkeep. Jenny Culver has, during upkeep, gained 1 additional resource. She would still gain that. But the standard single card draw, single resource gain, not going to happen in Forbidden Desert. You need to pack carefully and thoroughly before you leave base camp, and then go out into the desert wastes, do your business. Possibly, perhaps, you're going to have to go back to base camp at some point, even if you don't want to, and restock. That isn't to say, just to clarify, you can still obviously take actions to draw a card. You can still obviously take actions to draw resources, but you just don't get that automatic drip per round. There are 2 forced effects. I will take a look at the 2 forced effects when we hit the first Mythos phase, because that's where that is going to show what happens here. We move into the act. There's a bunch of instructions on here. The first and probably biggest change is that this is 5 actions per turn now, not 3, 5. 2 of them, though, have to be used on move actions. This is a big space to cover. Through playtesting, I played around with 3 actions, I played around with 4 actions, and 5. I wanted to get it at 4, but I couldn't find the balance there. 5 feels pretty good. It's pacey. It feels like a lot. I have 5 actions, what do I do? But it's not really, because so many of the choices, the actions that you make in Forbidding Desert are similar to Forbidden Desert, removing sand and flipping cards. That is, say, 75% of everything you're going to be doing. You are searching the bottom of these location cards. You're not going to be interested in many of them, but when you find the ones that you are interested in, then the Arkham Horror mechanics are going to lean into how you get past them. That's very important then. I have, for the Tabletop Simulator upload at least, just represented that with these 2 here. So we have 5 actions, but these actions have to be used on just a basic move action. We have 3 optional actions. Remove up to 2 Doom tokens from your current location or a connected location. You will see in the Mythos phase, Doom is going to pile up in the desert quite rapidly. And it's going to accelerate also. We can, as an action during our turn, get rid of some of that Doom. So this Doom counter, so at the moment it's at 4, for example, it's going to climb up to 11, and we'll be like, oh god, it's at 11, we need to bring it down a little bit. So you do control this, but it does move faster than you, especially because you have other things that you need to deal with. As an action, as a group, we can spend clues as an additional cost with the action. We can remove a Doom from the agenda. There is going to be an effect that puts Doom actually on the agenda. This first action, removing Doom tokens from locations, obviously wouldn't work with Doom on the agenda for obvious reasons. But there is another action you can do, spending clues, that can take Doom off the agenda. And as a final action, if we find one of these ritualistic assets on one of these locations, we can spend an action to pick it up. Our objective is to attach these 4 ritualistic assets to a location with the portal trait. There's your game. There is your game, pretty much. I guess we'll just run through maybe a first turn in which I won't play particularly well, but I want to get through a Mythos phase, because that's probably the final thing that we need to just cover. Take a look at base camp. It thematically represents a place where you are relatively safe. You're safe from the sun. It has the sheltered trait. You can collect water here, and you have an action. Look at the top 4 cards of your deck, then you can either put 2 of those cards in your hand, or just ignore them and take 4 resources if you don't find what you're looking for. Then you have to shuffle your deck, obviously. So I have found often you leave here, then you kind of run out of cards and go, I have to go back to base camp. There are perhaps a few things that you might find that allow for faster travel. You can move really fast in the game, don't worry too much about that. But it feels good when you, say you're down here and you want to head up this way, but you have to go back to base camp, or you feel like you should. There's a good choice kind of thing going on there. I would typically, for my investigators, pick the first action to be just to stock up. I would recommend leaving base camp at the start of the game with at least 7 cards in your hand, ideally 8, whilst you're at this location now. That said, it's up to you. Let's just have Roland. Roland will spend a move action to move to an adjacent... Oh, I didn't look at these. Of course. If we look at this, the first bit of text, and this is on every location, this location is connected to each adjacent location. Adjacent is defined in the instructions as non-diagonal, I guess. This is adjacent, this is adjacent, this is not adjacent. There is a card that does allow for diagonal adjacency, but that is a special bonus for that card. So this is connected to each adjacent location, meaning that Roland can spend a move action, move over here. Take a look at the desert then. This location is not revealed when you enter it. Huge difference to Arkham Horror the card game. And it's actually, gameplay-wise, it's very important to bear that in mind. It can be a little bit not ruining, but it spoils the main thrust of the game if you kind of autopilot, move to a location and flip it over. You must be spending an action to flip this over. You can only flip this location if it is clear. Clear is defined as having no Doom tokens on it. Roland could not spend an action to flip this card right now. At the moment, he can, because there's no Doom on there. So you need to be... Say he really wanted to flip this over and there was Doom, he needs to spend an action getting rid of the Doom. He will choose to flip this card over. So we can't use our move action, obviously. We have to use one of our regular actions, and we can flip this. And we see one of our directional cards. The way that you find these asset cards is each asset has 2 of these cards, and there's a general colour kind of linking them together. So we have a jade colour, and then these cards are going to have green arrows on. One of them is going to point vertically, and then there's another one on here that is going to point horizontally. When both of those cards have no clues left on them, you can then find which location on the desert they point to. So let's say this card here was the pair of this one. This was flipped over and had no clues. This is flipped over, it has no clues. It is this column and this row, so we would take the Jade Skull and attach it to this location. Easy peasy, right? However, we cannot activate that finding mechanism until all the clues are gone. As you can see, it has a shroud value of 3, and it has 2 clues on, 1 per investigator. Roland flips this over, he does his business grabbing clues, or whatnot. He should probably grab them. However, he's going to spend another move action, and he's going to move this way. He'll spend an action to flip this over, and he gets another one. I'm now looking for... He'll spend another action, and, I don't know, move there. Wendy. Wendy, again, probably should use the base camp ability, but she's not going to. She will flip one of these over and get rid of this Doom token, because she wants to. So the Doom is now at 3. There are 3 Doom tokens on the board. 1, 2, 3. She'll move, and she'll move down here. She will flip this over because it is clear, and she will move again, try to find a location that is not one of these finding cards. Oh gosh. Okay. So, all we did this turn is find these locations. As you can see, we have a red one there and a red one there. We should have clues on all of these. 1, 2, 1, 2, and 1, 2. Varying shroud values. 2, 3, 4, 3. Do take a look at these cards, though. When you actually gain them, one of them is gained through combat, one of them is gained through agility, one is gained through willpower, etc., etc. When you do gain them, things are going to happen. They might be good things, they might be bad things. The general rule that I've leaned into is the cards with the lower shroud, to actually gain the objective asset, when you actually gain them, it's not going to be a nice thing that happens. Cards with high shroud, the flute for example, they are going to be quite friendly to you if you can get hold of them. But Shroud 4 is pretty brutal. We finish our turn then, and we haven't played any assets because we're not playing a proper game. We do not draw anything during upkeep. We do not gain a resource during upkeep. We go into our next Mythos phase. It is a big shuffle. We need to place 1 Doom on the agenda and check whether the Doom value is equal to 20. It is not. So let's take a look at these 2 forced effects first. At the start of the Mythos phase, if there are 5 Doom tokens on this agenda, so not in play but just on this agenda, remove those Doom tokens and place 1 horror onto the agenda. And then there's another forced effect. When you draw a card from the encounter deck, draw 1 additional card for each horror on this agenda. So say this was the game state right now. Wendy is about to draw a card from the encounter deck. Wendy would have to draw 2 cards from the encounter deck, and so would Roland. Any effect that has you drawing a card, you add an extra card to that based on how much horror. Every 5 turns, you're going to put a horror token on here, assuming you can't do anything to slow this down. As it stands, all we've done is put 1 Doom on there. So we're going to flip one of these over. We have an eye shifting card. Shift the eye 2 positions to the west. So how do we shift? This needs to go 2 positions to the west. So this needs to go here. And to achieve that, we're going to take all of this and move it across. These locations have now been repositioned. The eye has shifted, but these locations have been repositioned. And everything goes with a location. So the clues that are on there, obviously, if there was one of these assets, one of these story assets attached to a location, it would move with it. Investigators will move with it, etc., etc. There's some extra text on there. When a location is repositioned, place a Doom token from the pool on that location. So if any of you have played the Rougarou, it is similar to that effect in many ways. As the Rougarou moves around, he drops clues. As the eye repositions these locations, it is going to drop Doom tokens. So we're now at Doom 6. Roland will draw a card, and let's just say, for example, because we've explained how that works, now we draw this one. Each investigator who is not at a sheltered location places 1 damage on a water skin. So your water skin, which is your water supply, now takes, not horror, now takes 1 damage, and this is a way of just tracking how much you are drinking. The sun is belting down and you have to take a drink from your limited resources. Roland has enough for 6 drinks, or I suppose 7 drinks in theory. He will die if he needs to take 7 drinks. Yes, he has enough for 6 drinks. Wendy's only has enough for 4 drinks, but you can share water if you're at the same location. And that is pretty much everything that the game is going to throw at you. Everything else is just interpreting the cards in the way that they're done. As you can see, this eye is going to move around, things are going to shift, and Doom is going to just pile up all over the place. It's going to shift over to, you're going to pull a card that draws it this way, so you move that over there. There's going to be an investigator here, and he takes 1 horror and 1 horror and 1 damage for investigators that are at locations. So this moves, and then it's going to move back to here, and he's going to take more, and then it's going to move again, and he's going to cry. So that kind of thing. Pretty much, I don't think there's even anything else that needs to be clarified. Everything else shouldn't just now fall into place. And things are going to happen in the game that are going to cause you to bring this into play at some point, and then you're going to have enemies to deal with. At some point there's going to be horror on the agenda, so you're not just drawing 1 card each, you're drawing multiple. You're going to have turns where you draw 2 of these back to back, and be careful if you are low on water. By all means, bunch up with your friends and share some water. Go to one of these locations, maybe find some water here. I don't think there's anything else I really need to point out. That's pretty much how the game's going to play. You will find that the first half of the game runs quite slowly, and you may feel good about yourself. You are not going to get much in the way of damage building up on you. You're not going to be using many cards. You'll slowly run out, I think, but you're not going to see all your deck in Forbidding Desert. You're going to start the game off with a clutch of cards in your hand, and you're going to have to make the best use out of them because you're unlikely to see many more cards from your deck. This is a moving around and finding things and then trying to deal with what you find as quickly and as efficiently as possible. It gets quite tense. The second half gets very, very manic, I found. The first half is fast-paced because you're just racing around, flipping cards. Yeah, the second half can get really, really nasty. And the last few turns can just be... What I found on several games is the last few turns are you are just tanking opportunity attacks or similar to finish off the game because you have just enough health to do so. It can be fun. I've had some really fun times with this. I'm hoping that people will enjoy it. Give it a go. Tell me what you think, and thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful. Sorry for mumbling. I haven't done a video in such a long time. I'm very much out of practice. I have a bit of a sore throat. Yeah, I'm just going to say bye-bye now. Hope you enjoy the game. Let me know what you think in the forums, and take care. Bye-bye, everyone.